So this question is 2010 ordinary level, intersection solids again, and we're going to have a similar problem. I think the end view is going to come over onto this, but I'm going to draw on top of it. If you want, if you're doing it at home, what you could do is basically you could take out a blank page and do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is come down about 120. Our height of our upright is basically 100, so 120 should be fine, and we should have a bit of space. So again, because it's quite close to this view when I have the question put on here, I'm only going to come in 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. And I'll draw a line here like so. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in 20 and I'll draw this line. And then I become stuck in the fact that I don't know this width, so I have to produce the plan first, or draw out the plan first. So this is a 45 line, so be careful that you use this set square. I accidentally was drawn it first, accidentally use the other set square. And we're going to start with this point here. So we know that this is 100. So to keep it up as close as possible will allow me to minimize the distance it goes across the page. So I think when we did this before, this worked out at about 95 from my recollection. But anyways, we'll just measure. So what I'm doing is I'm just measuring. We'll see how far can I go down that I'll get 100 millimeters. That I'll still be fairly close. So I can fit 100 millimeters there. Probably could have come up a tiny bit closer. No, sorry, I'm wrong. I come down about 80 millimeters for that point. Even 75 actually would be fine for that starting point, which is basically this one here. Okay, so 75 would work fine for that. So I came out 100 that way. I'll go 60 this way. I'll bring this down like so. And I'll bring this across to it. Okay, and at this stage now I have the point for this line, and this here sticks out another 20, so I can draw that. So what I can do is I'm now going to heavy in what I know. So I'm happy with this shape here, the cuboid that's sticking up at 45 degrees. And I'll spare out the other line in a second. Okay, happy with this. And I can draw the center line across. Okay, so I'm going on top of my thing, that's why I can't see one of them through the other. Again, I have a little tape here that's causing me a little bit of problem. But I have my basic shape there like so. Now, I can't measure this width. I know it's 35 this way, but I don't know, when I look straight down, what's the width from here to here. So what's the horizontal width, the straight across width? This is diagonal width or slanted width. So what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to start drawing in some of the elevation, and then we're going to look at the end view in order to figure out this width. Okay, so in some of the previous ones they gave you a distance this way so that you can figure it out. In this case we have a sloped distance and we can't use that to locate it. So what I'm going to do is bring up these points like I would typically. Okay. And we'll start with the cuboid structure, alright, because that's probably the easiest. So we'll go with 100 mil there. Now here we can't heavy it in because we're showing that it's going to stop and we don't know those heights, and you'll see that in a second. But here I can draw it solid because again if I stood here I'd see that line, and this one here I can draw it. Okay, and this one here is a mixture of solid and hidden, but I'm not going to draw it in because I don't know exactly where it starts. Okay, so I do know that if I come up 20, I'll have the baseline. Okay. Sorry, when I drew that line before, I was a little bit crooked. Yeah, I'm drawing that line, I must have accidentally had my T-square in tight. Okay, so we have that baseline. Okay, so I'm sort of limited now on what I can do without an end view, and this wouldn't be uncommon. So what I'm going to do is, this is the end. So maybe if I let's see, I'll shade. They didn't give a color this time, but I'm going to shade that this thing here is green, sort of keep it consistent to what it was the last time. Okay, so I'm just going to shade this just so that you can see where the end of it is, and the main reason for that is just so that you can see where I'm putting my 45 degree line at a slope. So I'm going to go down, as I've been doing, 45 degree lines from here, and then I'm going to project it across to meet the end view. So I might be lucky, it may just miss the drawing. So I'm just going to use a slightly different colour. So I'm going to use this orange to bring it across. So at the minute, all I can bring across is those 4 points. And I can bring across this line here to this view, and I'll bring across this. And I'll probably have to extend on this baseline line I look at. So it may come onto this view, we'll see in a second. So I'm going to bring these up from here. So this one here is fine. This one here is fine. And we'll just see now will it fit. Looks like it just will. So again, as I said, if I leave 5 millimeters of a gap here, this will just fit in on the other side. And again, it is important that this is another important distance. Only come down 75 for this point here. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to mark this point here as the center. So this is basically the bit that we have to take. This is the top edge of this. So basically this point here. So if I bring this up here, right, and it would also be the bottom, because one would be on top of the other. I can now draw in this shape here, my green shape, in this location. So just highlight that point. So that's basically the base point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go at 45 degrees this way. I'm going to go at 45 degrees this way, maybe a little bit further. And I need to mark a distance of 35 on that. So 35. Okay. And the other side, I could mark it this way, or technically I can bring it straight across. And then come back 35 this way. And if I'm accurate, that should line up. So I have my sort of, well, we'll call it a diamond shape in that view, but basically it's the cross rail that's coming across here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heavy that in. Again, it'll make it a little bit more smooth. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'll just try to repeat what I did there again just to make sense. So this is basically the top view of this structure that's coming in through the end view. So this point here is this line, which is the center. So what I did was I brought the center up and brought the center across at the starting point. I come out 45 degrees this way, measure 35, and I constructed that. So now once I have this, I can finish off this part by bringing this across. Okay, and I'm just going to heavy in what I have just to make it a little bit more stable. So I now can heavy in the whole outline. So that was that, that was that, and that was that. And we'll worry about where the lines start and stop in a second, but basically on my lines I could actually do my hidden detail part there at this stage. Okay, and then this one here, we have it like so. Okay, so we have our front view done. We still have to complete our plan. So again, because I was able to bring these lines across, I can also work from this way back down. So I'll just use a different color. I'll use the pink to come back down. So that's this point. This point. I'm sorry, because the way this is, I should bring this down to the purple line. Now, I could do this a different way. I could also just take this distance and step it off here. But I may as well project it back. It's probably the quickest way of doing it. Okay, and that looks pretty much perfect. Again, you can see there's a small gap between there and I have a small gap. So I'm happy with that. So I'm always checking one question, or the question off against what I'm producing. So I now have the plan completed. Okay, so I've produced what I'm given here, I've produced what I'm given here, and I now have to figure out these bits here. Again, I'm going to draw this line across. So I'm going to start on this side because it's the easier side. So if this is, again, we just shade this maybe in a green a little bit. I could spend a little bit more time, but just to speed up the video, you can see that there. So what I want to do is I want to figure out, well, where does this green structure go into, just get another colour pencil. We'll mix it up. Oh, I won't use yellow, maybe a tea. Oh no, that'll be too close to green. Okay, so maybe this orangey red. Okay, so let's see, well, where does that go into? We're not going to come as far as that, but that'll give us some idea just of what we're doing. So where does it go into that structure? So the first thing is, if I'm standing here, which is basically my front view, what will I see? Well, I'll see that point and that point and that point. And I suppose one of the things just to be aware of is these 2 points here are the outside edges, and this point here is both the top and the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label it here in the end view. So I'm going to write point 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to come round here. Well, this will be where 1 is. This is where 2 is. And then 3 is actually on the same line. It's underneath it. And this is point 4. So what I'll do, I'll bring these up. So we'll start at 4. I went to... Oh no, it's going to become hidden detail. Sorry, my T-square moved again. Okay, it just seems to hit off in the smaller question. So there's point 4. So I'll just mark it for a second. And then write it there. Apologies, there's 2 lines there. 1 and 3 are here. So I need to bring this across to meet it. And bring this one. Well, that's already across. So 1 is the one on the top, 3 is the one on the bottom, and then 2 is here. Okay, so if you imagine, I'd see 2 and 1 and 3, and then 4 would be where the back is. This structure would have bent back from the top. So happy with 1 to 2 has been solid, and then 1 to 4 would be hidden because it would have turned over and be at the back, so behind the structure. Should touch down there, and 3 to 4. Now again, as I said, particularly for this, seeing as we haven't done it in class and we're doing it online, 4, I wouldn't worry about not getting this hidden detail. That's quite difficult to understand, right, for some people. So what I would do is I definitely just draw it in as a line, even if it was a solid line or a light line. If you didn't fully understand the hidden detail, there's not many marks for figuring that out, because again, it is a quite difficult part. So I'm now going to label these again: A, B, C, and D. And A, B, C, and D are got to do with where it comes out the other side. So I just used a lettering system rather than a numbering system, just to sort of give the idea that it's a different part completely. So we have A, B, C, and D. So again, I'm going to follow A, but we're talking about it over this side. So here's A, here's B. So the key to this question is to label. Here's C. Again, similar to 1 and 3, A and C are in the same point, and here's D. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll bring them up. So A is already sort of on the line that it is, and B and D are symmetrical in this case. Mine are a tiny bit off just because of the thickness of the markers, but they're pretty much in line with each other. As I said, mine are just a little bit off with the markers. So A, I'm happy with, is here. Yeah. B is here. C is here. And D is here. This is how much I'll see is B and D lined up. Again, because it's symmetrical, one is going to be exactly in the same distance as the other, okay, because it's hitting at this exact same point. So A, you follow around the order that they went in the end view. So A went to B, went to C, went back to D. Now technically that would be a hidden line. I went back to A, that would technically also be a hidden line because they're at the back, but a solid line overrides a hidden line. So there's the question. That sort of lines up with what I'd expect, because that's why they stopped that exactly there. They didn't bring it in a little bit as if it might have worked, as if it might have been in a bit further. So they sort of give you that. So you're sort of happy with that. So what I'll do is just a little bit of shading, and then that's it completed. So I'll just continue this on. This might make it a little bit more easier. In fairness, I've seen that some of you did some very good shading for the questions you handed up from yesterday. So it just made it a lot easier to look at the question, and hopefully it made it a bit easier for you to sort of figure out what's going on. Okay. I know Emily was one that had a nice bit of shading on it. So the last bit then I have to do is just complete the plan. Or sorry, the end view. So again, you have to remember that if this is the end view and I stand this side, what would I see? Well, I would see A and C, or sorry, this corner here, sorry, that's just happens to me where A and C is. I'd see this corner, I'd see this corner, I'd see this corner, but I wouldn't see that corner. So I'm going to follow that one here because that's at the back, so that's going to be my hidden detail part. So typically I'd see 3 edges. It depends on the shape, obviously, but typically I'd see 3 edges if it's a cuboid. and I wouldn't see the other one. So this one here I would see. So I'm happy that that would be solid. This one here. Now I wouldn't heavy it. This is going through it, so there'll be no hidden detail in there because that's a slot that's going through it. So you'd assume it's like for any that you would with like a mortise or a hole in it, right? That would have been cut for it to slide through. And we're happy there with my end view. Okay, so that's the question completed. Again, I could shade this to be a red, so I could spend a lot more time shading this, but it's just to give the general gist of the idea, and also so that I don't spend ages on the video of you just looking at me shading. Okay, do it a little bit neater, but the general idea of it is there. So there's basically my question completed. So hopefully that makes sense. Don't be afraid to come online if you're stuck onto the Teams chat and ask me some questions and show me what you're getting stuck on. Okay.